awesome comparison video for you guys today. Two ThinkPads, T14, T14s 2025 model. I bought both of these to do a review. These are your traditional ThinkPad T14, T14s. I can tell you, rest assured, they didn't do anything weird with them this year, which is exactly what ThinkPad owners and ThinkPad enthusiasts want to see. They don't want to see all kinds of really, really strange changes. They want to see the ThinkPad that has been iteratively improved. That's all they want to see. So the ThinkPad T14s is the thinner one. The ThinkPad T14 is a slightly thicker one. I picked them up with different specifications, different CPUs, different screens. You can actually get them to be pretty close, match the specs of them. But rest assured, even if you get the same specs on both of these laptops, they're not going to be exactly the same. So there's a lot to show in this video. Now, I will put some links down below in the video description to where to buy these. I have a bunch of different Lenovo stores there. I do have some affiliate links as well. As you guys may or may not know, I don't take any sponsorships on my channel. None. I also don't take any money for videos, nothing like that. So all that I have to support my channel is, of course, like ad revenue. And you guys using my affiliate links goes a very long way. It really helps me buy these things to review. So I do appreciate it. You guys have been using them from time to time. Helps me out a ton. Doesn't cost you anything extra. It just helps support the channel. So check those out if you want. If you don't want to, don't worry about it. Okay, so we have the two different products here, the T14 and the T14s. They are a little different. Actually, they're more different than I thought when I actually got them in my hands, but the specs on paper are also a little different. And kind of following back from the previous generations, we can see here on the left here we have the T14s. On the right here we have the T14. Typically the S ones are slightly less upgradable. So they have soldered RAM. It stands for slim, but you can also just extrapolate that to soldered RAM. The T14 is always a touch thicker and does have things like upgradable RAM in general. Port selection, you can see they're basically the same. Interestingly, they have dedicated Thunderbolt ports. These are AMD machines. And the primary difference here is the Ethernet. So the Slim doesn't have an Ethernet port. Could be just physically it doesn't have the room. I think they could do it because I had a ThinkBook 14 Plus and they just had like a trapdoor kind of thing, but it is what it is. If you need Ethernet, you get the 14 instead of the 14S. CPU options here are similar, but there's a one tier up on the 14S. I'm actually finding the 14S to be a little bit more premium in some ways. So you do have the AMD 340, 350, and 360 on the S. The non-S just goes up to the 350. The same here over here with the 360. The primary difference here in reality is that the 360 does have the better iGPU. So I guess they have the exact same screen options overall from what I'm seeing here. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to secure the OLED. The OLED here does look very nice this year. On one of them here, and I did this kind of on purpose, I have the NTSC screen here. This one here, which is not going to have the best colors, so you'll see the difference there. And then on this one over here, I have the non-touch 100% sRGB. Okay, so here we are looking at the two laptops, the S here on the right, the non-S here on the left. They're not exactly the same. They are similar, but they're not exactly the same. So we can see here that the let's flip this around, I suppose. The T14 non-S has a slight, does that show up on camera? Slightly longer chassis, 2 millimeters. It's not much, to be honest. It is also this is the non-S, ever so slightly thicker. Might not show up well on camera. Oh, you can see it, yeah. Just ever so slightly thicker, again, to accommodate the SODIMM and that. Very good. Can't see much difference from the front. You can notice slightly different height, ever so slightly different height here on the T14 non-S. Just that tiny little bit there. There's also the feet underneath that make up for it a little bit. Very good, interesting. Inside, before we get into the ports, screens and that, we do have some differences here. The T14s has this slightly more dense perforations, I suppose. Buttons are more or less in the same price. You'll notice some hinge differences here. This has a double hinge from that direction. This one has a slightly different hinge there, almost like it's trying to be a two-in-one, but it's not. You do get full 180 and then full 180. So there's no differences there. They're just slightly different design language. Same trackpads and everything. The keyboards interestingly are not the same. They're actually a fair bit different. This one here on the T14s has a completely smooth, non-textured keyboard. The T14 it's almost like it has like a grain on it. It's weird. I don't like the feeling of that as much. However, it will be more resistant to fingerprints, so it's a trade-off, I suppose. This kind of pattern texture will be less likely to show like a sheer fingerprint grossness, whereas this one will show it much more, but it feels nicer. I don't know, it's just weird They're slightly different. Otherwise, you know, very similar. There's a slight difference in coloration, ever so slightly difference in coloration. This one being slightly darker. This one has a touch more light. I don't think any of this matters. It's just slightly different. Function and controls, this kind of more modern style instead of the more traditional style. Otherwise, you know, they're basically the same there. Ports are not exactly the same, but they're very close, as we saw in the intro. I'll just show you the positioning though. Left side, dual Thunderbolt, HDMI. That's your USB-A, the first one. Headphone. I will check the configured weight here. They should be very similar overall. $1,333 for the S. 1375 or so. So ever so slightly heavier. The chargers are these tiny little things. Let me just take this out here. Just this tiny little 65 watt thing. These don't weigh anything. Right, 135. You add the cords in, you get an extra 50 grams or something. Light little things like that. So if you're looking for that, just, you know, any generic USB-C charger will do. If you lose that or you don't have it, just get yourself any 65 watt USB-C charger. It'll be just fine. Getting inside both is very easy. Just some screws you take out, and they have washers so they don't come out. This one has a couple extras there, which also looks like it unlocks the keyboard as well, or it's a drainage plug or something from the keyboard. Anyway, so that's that there. Rubber back, or plastic back. No. So here's a look inside the two laptops. We can see they are very similar. 57 watt hour, 58 watt hour. Not really any difference there. They're both going to have decent battery life considering they're both AMD. Up-firing speakers on both of them. They should technically be the same overall. I did slap in a second stick of memory here. This one came with a single stick with a little shield there to protect it out. You can upgrade it. This is a 16 gigabyte, and all DDR5 memory runs in dual channel as it is. So it's not a big performance penalty having a single stick like it was with DDR4. It is still a penalty, but it's not a big one anymore. But I am going to slap in this here more just so that we have more memory. Like rather than having 16, we have 24 because this has 32, which could make a difference when we do any type of comparisons. We have a single NVMe in both of them here, the same Kioxia drive. It does accept a dual-sided NVMe. However, the chips on the backside are going to be touching the actual motherboard. It's not a big deal because there's like this kind of protective tape there, but just be aware there's not a ton of room, but it does actually fit a dual-sided. Barely, but it does. Very good. There's no room for a second NVMe because both of them have the WWAN, the cellular slot, so there's no way to get a second NVMe in here, but at least you can put in a fairly decent size as it is. This is something that they're not going to take out because it's an important factor for a lot of business buyers who need internet on the go on their laptop and don't want to tether to their phone. It's still a thing these days. And the cooling on both looks pretty similar. You get a single heat pipe on both with some VRM coverage. Nothing too shocking about it. Single heat pipe, whatever. This one does have an ever so slightly larger fan, thicker, slightly different fin. So we'll have to see how they sound. I do suspect this one will move slightly more air. Now, interestingly, the T14s does have access to the one tier up CPU. Okay, typing experience test. They probably are going to be similar. They don't feel exactly the same, I can already tell you that much. The actual physical keycaps are smaller, like in terms of Z height, they're smaller, but they do maintain a ton of travel, right? They do maintain a lot of travel. That's great. Now, the interesting thing, as I mentioned earlier, this has a bit of a texturing to it. It's kind of hard to describe. It's like the plastic wasn't polished down after, but it doesn't feel bad by any means. It just feels different. You can definitely feel the texturing on that. This is completely smooth. I mean, to the touch, I prefer this one. It just feels better, but I can say this will probably show fingerprints more than this here. The way that this will diffuse, like kind of the light is diffusing off. I can see it. The camera might not show it, but I can't see any fingerprints on this keyboard at all. It's not too bad, but I can see a few here and there. So your choice. I don't think it's really going to be a deal breaker for either, but let's do a quick typing test here. Okay, they don't feel the same, just so you know. They don't feel the same. They're the same, like the key switch might be similar, and a lot of it might be similar, but they don't feel the same. The flex is good on both. There's not a lot of keyboard flex either on either. This one being a denser, thicker chassis, it does feel slightly more rigid. Like the whole laptop just feels slightly more rigid. When you pick it up in your hand, it doesn't feel cheap by any means, but this feels like, I don't know, just a slightly thicker, less rigid laptop. This one here, thinner with a metal bottom. It just gives it a little bit more structure. Density, I guess, would be. This one is denser, we'll put it that way. I prefer this keyboard. This is, it's outstanding. The ThinkPad keyboards are generally speaking top in game. So this would be a solid 10 out of 10. It's an incredible typing experience. It doesn't take me any time to get used to it. And this is one of the better ThinkPad keyboards. Excellent. This is by no means bad. It's still going to be better than the vast majority of keyboards on the market. I think that both of them are going to be fantastic. You're going to have an excellent typing experience on both of them. However, I do prefer the more dense typing tactile feedback that this one provides here versus this one over here. You can definitely feel a little bit more that there's a little bit more emptiness inside of this laptop here. And so as a result, it just doesn't feel quite as nice, but they're both good. Now, I do like the track point. I actually have, where's my keyboard? This one here is a wired version. I have a non-wired version. It's just not with me. This one is wired because it just, when I'm hooking up computers, I don't want to mess around with Bluetooth, all that kind of stuff. I plug it in here and it has the track point nib. And I can use left click, right click, center. And this is good when I'm hooking up stuff that, especially like handhelds and that kind of stuff, because I don't have a mouse with them or keyboard. Now, in situations like this where you do have that, it does allow you to, move around without using the trackpad. Why would that be important? Part of it is just nostalgia, to be honest. People are like, I need my track point. But at the same time, there is a reason for it. Like if you're typing here, and if you're a touch typist, right? When you're gonna use the trackpad and you want to make an adjustment, you have to bring your hand all the way down, move to where you want to do it, then reposition your hand, which does take time and cognitive load, and you can be more prone to moving your hand back to the wrong spot, right? Like over here by accident, and then it will screw up your typing. Yes, it has these little like finger things here, but if you're typing quickly, you're not thinking about that kind of stuff. Whereas if you're typing here and you're a touch typist, all you need to do is move your finger, right? Like that, you can move around and you can use your left or your right thumb, whatever. I guess if you're like really good, I end up just doing that, keeping my hand on there and keeping the other fingers there, and I can go like that. But if you get really good at it, I suppose what you would actually do, you'd move this one over here and you'd actually left click like that. Like that's the power move right there. And you don't need to remove your left hand doesn't have to move obviously regardless, but your right hand doesn't have to move. All you have to do is move one finger over, right? You put your finger over here and you're able to modify what you're typing and then just put your finger back and continue typing. So when you're doing essay writing, it actually does make a big difference. It's just interesting that you can do that. Now, the actual trackpad, of course, are fine. They're smooth texture. They're not glass trackpads or acrylic or whatever, but they're smooth to the touch. You can still use these. When I'm using a ThinkPad as a daily driver, I actually do use that, and I end up using these quite a bit because I just like the physical buttons. Obviously, they just feel nice. However, they do have a plunge. I don't like the plunge on the ThinkPads. I never have. They do it on purpose because they're meant to be used in like a business environment, so they're quiet. They're tactile and everything, but they're kind of muted. I just like an over-exaggerated click. That's just the way that I am. And they do that on purpose because using this in a business office, the last thing you need to hear is like every single time you press a thing, like a yoga has that. But, that's just the thing. Now, some ThinkPads, not these ones, that when you get up to the X series, for example, some of them you can move into haptic trackpads. I've been using a ThinkBook 14 Plus Chinese import specifically with a haptic trackpad, and I know that Lenovo can do them, and they're fantastic. And I would love to see the option of decking any of these out with haptic trackpads. However, in terms of like volume, the T series typically does, standard consumers buy them, but they do really appeal towards like large scale business consumption. And so for streamlining it, I can see why they don't offer that, because it would be a pain in the ass for them to do it. But overall, these are totally fine. Now, there are quite a few screen offerings, as I mentioned in the beginning part, for these laptops. These are both okay, I suppose. I'm not a fan of this one over here, and I kind of did that on purpose to kind of show off the range. The OLED one I didn't get, unfortunately, because it wasn't in stock for one thing, and the price jump was huge, and I was just like, whatever. We know what an OLED looks like. It'll be good. They're both going to be similar overall in terms of the raw specs outside of color. So you do get 1200p on both of them. That's fine, actually, at 14 inches. I prefer, once you go up to 15 or 16 inch, I'd kind of need more resolution. Even at 14, I do prefer more, 1600p, but I'm not against 1200p at this resolution. It's enough pixel density that it looks okay. Like there's not like janky text or anything like that. It works. As soon as these screens got bigger, it went up to 16 inch. I don't like 1200p at 16 inches. I'm sorry, I don't. At this screen here, when we're getting 1200p, you get decent enough pixel density, and most importantly, it will actually increase battery life because it's easier to drive. Neither of them are high refresh screens either. These are both the 60 hertz refresh screens. So there's nothing special here about either screen. They're very much like business screens, but the colors are vastly different. You can even see here. The camera might not pick it up. It never does, but my eyes can because I have human eyes, not camera eyes. This is not red. This color is not red. This is orange. It's orange into the red area, but it's not a red. This is not a red color. This is red, right? That is a red for the Lenovo Vantage. Okay, so first things first here, we can see reflection handling. There's a light beside me. One of the advantages of these IPS screens in general is very good reflection handling. That's a very bright light right there, and it just comes out somewhat muted. That's good. Now, on these ThinkPads, the OLEDs will also have an anti-reflective or semi-anti-reflective coating. So even if you get the OLED, it's going to be like this, where it does handle reflections very well. And this is dramatic. This is not what I see. I actually see about that. I can't see that light at all based on my angle. I'm actually more like this. But I just wanted to show that. So they're all going to handle reflections well because they're designed for professional environments. They're not going to put a super reflective screen on here. I'd love to see the anti-reflective OLEDs in their like Legions and stuff, but I don't know. It is what it is. Blacks are good though. I have used these for a few days. In a dark room, I don't notice any pinching. Sometimes you can get pinching here. It might be hard to show. Yeah, like that. See that there? How you can get pinching, and that can cause light bleed. I don't have any of that on either of these screens. That is important to see. I hate when that happens on a laptop, especially when they have a bezel type like that. And I also just don't notice any like general bleed. So they're good for IPS in terms of blacks. They're not absolute blacks, but these do have good contrast. They don't look washed out. We'll go on here. Now, here is where we run into our first actual major issue. Let's see if the camera can pick it up. Actually, it does work on camera. It's even more dramatic in person. This is red, and it's supposed to be a royal red. It's an sRGB, so it's a color accurate screen. A DCI-P3 would push even further into the red, and this would become an incredibly vibrant, deep red color, where it's just exceptionally saturated. I suppose something more like this. Like this is a Lenovo Serif headphones. Can you see the difference there between the two of them? This would be like the deepest red that a DCI-P3 screen would be able to represent very well. sRGB brings that back just a touch, but it's still very good. Like it's considered accurate. I have no complaints about an sRGB screen. It's a good color space and good for people who do color accurate professional work, because DCI-P3 sometimes can be more saturated, sometimes wrongly saturated. Moving over here though, we have an NTSC screen. NTSC screens look very bad. I would like to see them be discontinued from the face of the earth. There's no reason to have an NTSC screen anymore in 2025, 2026. I understand that it's cost savings, but I just think that they should stop being made. I don't want to see I don't want a screen that is inaccurate and incapable of displaying colors. There's other ways to save money on panels, and if you stop making NTSC screens, 45% NTSC screens, they don't exist anymore, then production can be moved towards screens like this that will then bring down the costs. I don't want to see these in here. I know that the excuse is, yeah, they're Lenovo business buyers. They don't care about the screen. It doesn't matter. I don't want to see NTSC screens. I will never give a pass to an NTSC screen. I will never give a pass to it. If there's a huge cost savings, like I'm talking $400 or $300 or something like that, okay, and you're only typing up essays, you're not doing anything else, it is a purely business machine, sure. This will be fine, but I don't think it should even be an offering in the first place. I think the baseline should be sRGB, because you don't get proper colors, right? Like this is not red on the right. It's like a weird orange type of thing. And this person looks like a zombie. This is not red, right? And it looks more pronounced in person. It looks worse in person, to be honest. The blacks are good. I like to see that. So the reason I spec this out with the sRGB, non-sRGB screen is I want to show this on this, like basically the same laptop side by side. When you spec out these laptops, unless you get a true steal on the NTSC screen, please, for the love of God, do not buy it. But here's green, right? Here's a green tone. And we can see here the green looks quite dead. These grasses look like kind of dead, to be honest. It's not vibrant. This is green. This is like alive plants. These look like they're like I don't know, they look like they're like someone's been smoking packs of cigarettes around them every single day, and they have like a yellow filter on them. You notice NTSC the most in red, like it looks very noticeable. Secondary would be yellow, green looking very yellow. That's the secondary spot. And then you do also notice it in places like blue. Even that blue is weak. Like that's a weak blue. That's a vibrant blue. Now what I'm getting from this is actually a good screen, right? It's not 120 hertz refresh. It's not the highest resolution, anything like that, but it's a good screen. The 100% sRGB 1200p screens are good. I like it. I think it's fine. Nothing wrong with it. So I would get this and just be like, yeah, it's a good screen. We have no problems. This, look how dead that looks. I would absolutely avoid this screen unless you are a business owner, business buyer, like at a bank, and you need to buy 1,000 ThinkPad fleet, and it's literally going to sit on a desk and just show Excel documents and nothing else. It doesn't matter then, I guess. But if you're going to be giving these to your employees to use for anything, please, for the love of God, just get the sRGB screen. Okay, so now we're going to do the audio test. We'll start at half. I don't expect there to be really much of a difference, but there might be. You never know. I'll start about half. I also don't expect them to be staggering or anything, but they should be okay. They're both up firing, so we'll see. We'll start with the T14 over here. Just watch your headphones. Okay, now we're going to go up to full volume. Just mind your headphones again. These do sound better. They are the same speakers. I'm pretty sure they're the exact same speakers. There might just be minimal tuning difference and chassis design. This is ever so slightly louder, and there's a little bit more resonance, probably due to the chassis. And it does give it a touch bit better richness and fullness, I would say. But they're so close that it's not going to be a big difference. If someone made me pick one, I would pick this one, but they're both fine. And let me tell you, as of last year, I guess it was this year, early in the year 2025, Lenovo decided, you know what, let's not make our ThinkPads have absolute dog shit speakers, especially when they're in the T series that cost money. And that was the smartest thing they ever did. These have good speakers. Isn't that crazy that a business laptop that's like a true business, like a ThinkPad, like business laptop, can have good speakers? Why would you want that? Well, for one thing, you may be listening to conferences. You may be having meetings. You may be having to play audio. You may be having to play music, even in a business setting. So having good speakers is vitally important to a laptop like this. Okay, so now we're going to run some Cinebench. I've done all the updates you can imagine, BIOS, Windows, AMD drivers, everything like that. Let's see where we're at here. Now, the fans are a little different between the two of them, just doing like updates and that. I've noticed this one is a little bit louder and aggressive. Makes sense, it's slightly thinner, but I'm talking Windows updates. When we're hanging out here and nothing going on, it's not really that much different, but you can hear this one slightly more. Still very quiet though. Now there will be some bleed over, but... the idle temps are good though. Right, 43, 40, they're similar. I can definitely hear this one a touch more. These are both, as I said before, very good CPUs. I have a fair bit of experience with the 350. I don't have much with the 360. I've only done, I think, 1 or 2 laptops with that. Okay, so let's run Cinebench here. We're on the power mode, performance mode, whatever. You can see they're both 8-core, 16-thread. I don't know what this resulted because this is technically a more powerful CPU, a little bit, with slightly improved, but I don't think it's going to translate that much to performance because this does have slightly higher thermal headroom. So let's see. I do expect them to actually almost have the same scores. That's my guess. Let's see how accurate I am in this. Immediate temperature jump on that one. 41 to 30. Oh, it's more watts. Okay. Yeah, this is just going to perform better, straight up. They have different wattage limits. That makes sense. I guess, more powerful CPU technically. This one had a slightly higher wattage dump at the get-go. So it might have given it a little bit of a head start there. But then this one here has a slightly higher wattage overhead. 31 versus 20, where did it go? 28. So this still beat it faster though. But that's a single run. It did have a slightly higher boost. Neither of them are throttling, but this is running cooler, as we can see here. So the scores, 14,000 and 13,451. It's reasonable, honestly. These chips can do more in a bigger laptop. So I recently used this chip here in a Legion 15-inch. I just actually published a review like 2 days ago. And this chip in that thicker chassis with more cooling and more wattages, it got closer to 17,000. So it performs better. But you can see here, even with a fraction of the watts, it's still doing very well. So, in a thin ThinkPad chassis, you are going to be able to do a lot with these chips here. The 370 would perform quite a bit higher, but they don't actually offer that in this laptop, which is interesting. I kind of wish they would, because you do get a slight iGPU bump, but more specifically, you do get a more powerful CPU with extra cores. They are kind of starting to catch up slightly. 13,419. Yeah, this one had a very, very short burst of watts that was higher than this, which just gave it that edge. And now they're probably going to end up being quite similar. More powerful CPU, but thicker chassis, better thermal headroom. You can see we're running at 75, 68, very well. It's running very well. It's not throttling over here by any means, but we are running hotter, 83, 83, 77. So it might be slightly adjusting the clocks here just to keep it within thermals. So it's interesting. I mean, you can get the one step up CPU here in the thinner chassis, which allows it to match the thicker, better cooled chassis. So they end up being actually quite similar. And that's an interesting choice from Lenovo. I guess it makes sense, right? This one is running much louder though. Okay, and we're in a little bit further here. So you can see it is running significantly quieter. So a little bit noisier. So I mean, we don't need to do the benchmark section or anything like that. It is interesting to see. I mean, the slower RAM here being SODIMM, one tier down CPU, of course, as well. So we have one tier down there. This is one tier up with faster memory, but it's also a thinner chassis that runs warmer. So and lower wattages. So what happens here is they actually perform very similar. Looking at a couple other benchmarks, we'll compare the Wi-Fi. The T14 here has a MediaTek Wi-Fi 7 MT7925, getting a speed of 734 for downloads. Uploads don't really matter, at least on my Wi-Fi, because they suck. And then looking at the T14s, it actually has a Qualcomm Fast Connect 7800, and it's actually quite a bit slower. These are done immediately back to back, and I did a few runs. So the T14 just having MediaTek Wi-Fi just apparently is quite a bit faster. That's an interesting take. The SSDs are the same on both of them. They're not the fastest SSDs here, but they're okay, I guess. Kind of like mid to low range Gen 4. You can change them if need be, but this will still be fine for daily use. You won't have any problems there whatsoever. Then I did some battery testing. This is full brightness, full refresh, everything. Just kind of hanging out in Windows, messing about a little bit here, not doing anything too heavy. We can see here that the wattage burn on the T14, we're looking at about 6.5-ish watts, just kind of hanging out doing whatever basic Windows stuff. That's actually not bad. That's going to give you 8 or 9 hours. It doesn't have a huge battery, but despite that, it's still going to give you like a full workday, and that's great to see. You're going to love that. And then going over to the T14s, interestingly, it actually burns a little bit less, and I did try to mess around with this quite a few times, and even in here, it just runs a little bit lower watts. And the potential for this is actually components like the RAM. Soldered RAM is going to run low power. DDR5 memory is going to consume less power than SODIMM memory. There's potentially a few other things here, but my assumption here is this is actually just the memory itself. So we're looking at an extra watt or watt and a half less burn going on here, and that'll actually increase the battery life quite a bit. You're probably going to get closer to 10, 11 hours out of this one here. So between the two of them, they're both going to be very good all-day battery, but the thin one does get slightly better battery overall. All right, looks like we have a very similar scene here. We have the T14 here, the T14s over here. They're actually fairly different. The angle looks to be, I guess, similar. Yeah, about similar. And it could be the screen itself, but this one does actually look better to me. It's a little bit more natural coloring. It looks to be as well. This one over here looks to be noticeably grainier. So, I mean, between them, I'm going to take, obviously, this guy over here, T14s. Overall, both fine, though. I mean, they don't look bad by any means, but I'm definitely leaning towards this one over here. They'll be fine for meetings. You'll not have any problems with anything like that. But, yeah, reasonable business level cameras here. Okay, we'll do game testing on both of them. This chip is available in this one, but you can't get the better chip in the T14 here, which is odd. Again, they're not gaming machines, but whatever. So we're just on low. And we have performance XeSS, it's better than FSR, and it'll play fine, honestly. It's an 860M, and like it'll be okay, right? It's not going to be as powerful as the 780M or stuff that you find in the 890M, the newest stuff, but it's fine. Honestly, this is pretty good. 1200p screen, so when you throw on the performance scaling, it does drop the resolution a bit. It just gets a little soft, but you'll notice with XeSS there's no sparklies, so it's just fine, honestly. And you'll be getting pretty good performance. You'll be getting 35 probably on the lowest end, and then in areas that are easier to run, you're getting out here. I play this on my PS5 and Xbox Series X mainly, and I play it on what they call balanced mode, which gives you about 45 FPS anyways. It's pretty much exactly this. So it's a balance between fidelity and performance, and that's roughly what we're getting here. So I have no problems with this. There's a big jump going from 30 to 45, by the way. If you game 45 to 60, you can notice it, but it's not that noticeable. 30 to 45 is massive. It's a huge difference. And yeah, we're getting good. I mean, it's not bad. Easily play. So this chip, I mean, again, it's not the highest up the stack, the 860M, but you're going to be able to play, well, you'll be able to play any game that's out right now. To be honest, it's 2025, just at the turn of 2026, and any game that's on the market, honestly, you'll be able to play it. AAA titles, sure. You're going to have to just play with the settings a little bit. Same with any of these handhelds. You're going to play with the settings, low, with some scaling, that kind of stuff, but you're going to be fine. Okay, and here we are on the slightly more powerful iGPU, the 880M. But again, this is a lower wattage offering, slightly lower watts. So it is a more powerful iGPU, but it's running at a lower watts. So we have a little bit of a trade-off there. It would be interesting to see this chip in the thicker chassis that allows for a little bit more watts. I do expect that just in general, though, this will outperform. It'll just be more consistent. Like you're running at lower watts, so sure, you're going to chop off a little bit of the peak performance of the iGPU here. But in the end, it is still a more powerful iGPU. Like regardless, it's still just more powerful. It's one tier up. So I expect more consistency overall. And as you can see, the dips are lower. I don't know. We'll have to see if that was captured on film, but were less dips there. It's just it's a fairly consistent, just 45. The other one, you were looking at 30, 35 in the city or town, village. And then when you come out, it would go up a bit. Here, it's just generally like slightly faster. This chip can perform better in a higher wattage offering, but regardless, it's doing well. Like this is an excellent experience for both. The 880M is generally speaking more powerful of an iGPU. Again, if you could give it slightly more watts, it would do better, but it's just a thinner chassis. However, on both of them, this included, you're going to be able to play any game that's out, right? Any AAA title, you're going to be playing it. It's going to run very well. You're going to have no problems with it. As long as you're reasonable with the settings in the most demanding modern titles like this, you'll be having a blast. And then slightly older ones or indie titles or just less demanding titles, you can really, take the reins off and just let the system fly. So there you go. Very good. Okay, so we have the two ThinkPads. I'll give you, the comparison between them and the breakdown. Generally speaking, though, they are both true to the ThinkPad. So if you're a ThinkPad Bro, you're going to be happy with these. ThinkPad owners don't want massive changes. That's what I see. They want the same product, honestly, like they want the ThinkPad. The T14 should be the T14. And the T14s should be the T14s. People will pick the one they want, and they want it to be updated every year to be slightly faster, slightly better here and there, right? Like now we have access to 120 hertz OLED. Now we have access to a slightly better CPU, this kind of stuff. Nobody in the ThinkPad community, generally speaking, I'm generalizing y'all, I'm also part of it. I like the ThinkPads. I have many. We don't want to see huge, massive changes. Lenovo does have the massive change, the ThinkPad X, the X15. Is that what it's called? X1, 15-inch, and 16-inch, and 14-inch, and blah, 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 blah. That's the, different ThinkPad. And that's fine. That can exist as its own thing. But these ThinkPads should kind of remain as they are because that's what people want. Now, the differences between them, which one do I prefer? Of course, I do very much like that the T14, the standard T14, has upgradable RAM. I love that. However, we are also in RAM apocalypse, so RAM is super expensive right now, crazy expensive right now. So people are not going out there, unless you have RAM, you can buy this thing spec down and you can upgrade it, or you can hold out until the RAM apocalypse is over. Not a bad idea. But if Lenovo's offering RAM on a good price, this is a time where normally I'm like, just get it on your own. But right now, if Lenovo's giving it for a good price, just get it from them because RAM is really bad right now. But this is upgradable. The T14, you get upgradable RAM. That's nice. It's generally, is this the T14 or S? Yeah, it's the T14. Jeez, they're so similar. Yeah, it is upgradable. The T14 itself, you get slightly better cooling in that. Very good. A little bit thicker, whatever. The T14s, you can spec out with RAM that's soldered, so make sure you get the amount you want. 32 gigabytes or 64, you're going to want to buy into those two spots. You don't want less, obviously. Just for longevity. This one here is 32 inch, just fine. The chassis between the two of them, I do prefer the S here, T14s, because it does have a metal bottom. It's ever so slightly thinner, but because it has a metal bottom and a little bit more dense, it just feels a little bit more premium. I just like the chassis slightly more. Otherwise, they're basically the same. Like, they're not a huge weight difference. There's not much difference. It's just a tiny bit more thin and a tiny bit more dense, I guess I'd say. And we all know that. That's how the T14 is versus the T14s. Overall, I like both of them. They're fantastic. There's nothing weird with them. You never want to see something strange happen to a ThinkPad T14 or T14s. You're like, just make it faster and everyone will buy it. That's all you got to do. And that's what they've done. So it's a great laptop and it's a great laptop. They're slightly different. I hope I highlighted that in the video. I can't tell you which one to buy. They're just slightly different. They're both good though. So those are the T14, T14s for 2025. Good laptops.